right, welcome to what is probably going to be one of the most unconventional BreyerFest experience videos you have ever seen. But I am making an effort to at least get one out there. I would be pretty bummed out if I didn't at least give this a swing and a miss. So here we are. A couple reasons why this is going to be unconventional. The big one, the elephant in the room, is simply that I did not get very much video footage of BreyerFest this year. I don't know how y'all have time to get enough video whilst doing all of the things. I'll just have to strap a camera onto my chest next year or get a body cam or something to just film the entire experience, because I don't know how y'all have your phones or cameras whipped out often enough to get enough video footage. It could not be me. I get enough to make a couple of TikToks, put stuff on my stories, but I don't have my phone or my camera out for, hours on end to just get enough footage to even make something like this possible. So what I did instead is I put out a post on my story, my Instagram story, that asked whether you wanted me to face-to-face tell stories and kind of do a photo overlay, or I could hop on Star Stable and run around and just tell stories as I'm doing tasks on there with photo overlays, or I could quite literally just do photos and have it be like a slideshow, which arguably is the most difficult and possibly the most boring way to do it. But that was the way that y'all voted. So here we are. That is what we're going to do. And, if you all find it entertaining, I am glad for it, and I'm happy to do it this way. So most of what you're going to see are pretty much just still pictures. I've got a couple video clips that I will throw in for fun, but it's pretty much just going to be still pictures and me talking. So hopefully that doesn't bore you too much. Hopefully you don't get too sick of my voice. So without further ado, let's talk about BreyerFest 2024. This year's BreyerFest was by and large my favorite BreyerFest that I've attended so far, either virtual or in person. I feel like I find myself saying that every year, but honestly, every year more amazing stuff happens. I get to spend time with more friends, and I don't know, maybe that's just eternally how it will be, is that each year feels like it's the best year because it's the most fresh. Who knows? But I think that I've said that nearly every single time I've made an experience style video. I know I definitely said it last year. But truly, I had so much fun this year. I got to do so much and see so much and participate in so much and spend so much time with all of you, which was by and large the best part of BreyerFest. There were so many of you guys there this year. I got to spend time with old friends and new, and it was just so much fun. I will also say before I dive into the details of each day that a lot of this might be redundant. One, if you watched my video from June where I talked about my BreyerFest plans, and two, if you follow me on Instagram, I did do kind of a detailed series recapping each day of BreyerFest. So if you've already tuned into both of those, a lot of this might be redundant, but here we are. And one more quick note before we go day by day is that you all know BreyerFest is more than just this week. I started prepping different things for this year's BreyerFest months and months and months in advance, because I had to, with all the things that I was going to be participating in. A lot of them weren't just things that you could up and do the day of. A lot of them, especially all of the shows, were things that took months and months of prep. So there was a lot of hard work behind the scenes. Obviously we're going to talk about highlights and the fun parts and exciting things, but there were hours and hours and hours of prep that went into a lot of this, probably starting at the beginning of 2024, if not even before then. We're going to talk about North American Nationals a little bit, and that prep obviously goes well beyond just 2024. I had essentially 2 years worth of qualifications go into that, and there's record keeping and whatnot that goes into all of that as well. So this is like a highlight reel of BreyerFest. So, okay, here we are, nitty gritty, day by day breakdown. I was in Kentucky for 9 days, which is a record for me. Even when I was doing real horse things, I was never there 9 days in a row. I left the Sunday before BreyerFest started, packed up 276 plus model horses, probably wound up being close to 300 model horses, into my truck, hopped on the highway and drove south to Kentucky. I picked up my friend Zoe on the way. Zoe was my nan helper extraordinaire on Monday and Wednesday. Without her expertise and her extra set of hands, I would not have been able to get all of my horses on the table at Nan. And I will say that every single horse that I wanted to show made it on the table thanks to Zoe and all of our hard work. So it paid off. The drive down was uneventful. We arrived as expected and checked into our hotel. We then went over to the Clarion to pick up my Nan packet. I competed in Nan on Monday and Wednesday, both of the days that there were OF Breyer, OF Plastic classes offered. And then I volunteered on Tuesday, which was the custom artist resin, both halter and workmanship day. So I had to pick up goodies for both a show entrant and a volunteer. We had special t-shirts as volunteers and a really fun goodie bag, which was awesome. And then obviously my Nan packet had all of my tags and stickers that went on the tags. And that was how we spent the first night of BreyerFest. With how many horses I had brought, it took 4 of us almost all night to get all of the tags prepped and then models tagged and put back in their totes. But we did it. That was probably the most stressful part of BreyerFest for me. I wish I had taken a picture of it, but it quite literally, there were 4 of us. So thank you to Rebecca and Rachel also who helped me tag things. It took all 4 of us all night. I don't think I went to bed until about 3 a.m., which is by my own doing. I acknowledge that. I understand that. I knew it was going to be rough. I knew it was going to take a very long time, and it did, because I brought so many gosh darn horses. But that was by design, and that was honestly the most stressful part of my BreyerFest, so we did okay after that. Oh, and fun anecdote, if you spoke to me at BreyerFest, no you didn't, because I had no voice for almost all of BreyerFest. The doctors tell me it was allergies. Yes, I got COVID tested. Yes, I got strep tested. They were both negative. Apparently, my sinuses just want to kill me a couple of times a year, and it only gets worse as I get older. So maybe some allergy testing will be in my near future, but I had no voice for most of BreyerFest, and naturally, I continued to try to talk to people. So naturally, my voice continued to be non-existent because I wasn't letting it heal very well. So I was popping cough drops and honey cough syrup left and right just so my throat didn't feel like it was on fire from all the gabbing that I tried to do, even with a sore allergy throat. So we're going to pretend that didn't happen and that my voice just sounded like it does right now. So if you talked to me at BreyerFest, you didn't. We'll just leave it there. All right, so we've gotten through Sunday night, the tagging mania and all that ensued. I probably didn't get to bed until about 3, but hey, I am used to running on only a few hours of sleep on show days, so wasn't anything too out of the ordinary. Zoe and I got up early on Monday morning and headed to the show hall for the first day of Nan, which was so much fun. I had no idea what to expect. This was my first Nan in any capacity, as a volunteer, as an entrant, All I knew of it at this point was the registration and the qualification process and things that I had heard from folks that had much more experience than I did. And let me tell you, my experience was so positive. It was such a good experience. The folks that were running the show, especially Carrie, who was the chair of NAN this year, they were so kind and so patient. I know I talked about it a little bit at length in one of my Instagram posts, but there were numerous times on Monday when Carrie herself, who was the chair of NAN, came to my table to ask if a specific horse needed to get out on the table, the show table, or not. So she had lists of individual models and knew who they belonged to in case there was a horse missing on the table. She was not going to let anybody miss a class if she had anything to do with it. And with how many people were there and how many horses were there, I thought that was so amazing and so kind. And it was such a wholesome and uplifting environment. And to be honest, it's not that I didn't expect that, but I expected it to feel quite a bit more cutthroat and quite a bit more fast-paced and rigorous and more of a, if you miss it, that's, kind of on you type situation, if that makes sense at all. Because it's nationals, right? It's meant to be competitive. It's meant to be fast-paced. And it was all of those things. But it somehow was also magically combined with this, we want you to be here, we want you to get what you paid for, we want your horses to get on the table, and we're going to be happy, we're happy that you're here, and we're happy that you're doing this with us. Like, it was just this magical synthesis of both of those things. Because it was very competitive, but it was also very uplifting and encouraging. And that's not something you always get at every single show, but I thought it was something that it was so cool to feel and experience at nationals, at such a big, competitive championship show. So that was really cool. Like, I could blabber on and on about it. It was just such a positive, encouraging environment. And, outside of that, I found the judging to be fascinating. It reminded me a little bit of my college equestrian days when, each rider would score a certain amount of points, and there was a point rider for the team, and the team with the most points won, et cetera, et cetera. The judging is so interesting, and I know that it's varied a lot and that it's been a point of conversation for years and years and years, but this year, there were 3 judges that judged each class and pinned each class independently, and each horse that pinned was allocated a certain number of points for each placing, from my understanding. And then, again, from my understanding, the horse that had the most points was the horse that won the class. And I know there were a couple of outside factors that would kind of affect it independently, but I think generally speaking, that's kind of how it worked. And it was so interesting. They had a live stream, or not stream, but a live feed of the results to their website. So if you wanted to know how something did, you didn't hear them announce it, or you missed it, or you were at another table, you could hop on your tablet or your phone when you got back to your table and check what the results for that class were. Because if they were announcing it out loud, it had already been uploaded onto the website, which was so cool. And they also had printed out copies of all of the results, and this is the part that reminded me of college equestrian, and they had them taped to the wall. So you could go up and physically check the printed out papers taped to the wall to see what the point breakdown was, who won, who was reserve, who was top 10, et cetera, et cetera. And it was so interesting to see, even after the fact, when I was going through results on my computer when I was at home, it was interesting to see just the difference in the point allocations between reserve and champion. Sometimes it was within 1 or 2 points, and sometimes it was a landslide. Sometimes it was very clear that all 3 judges knew who they wanted to either win or take reserve. It was so interesting to kind of see the breakdown like that. And interesting also to see different judges' styles and tastes and how some things varied quite significantly and other things didn't really vary much at all. It was very interesting. Monday, by and large, was my biggest day, both in terms of quantity of models shown and in terms of successes. I don't know exactly how many models I showed on day one, but it was over 200. And I came home with 98 top 10s and 19 national champs and reserves, which was such an honor. It was so much fun. And don't you worry, I did not keep all of those rosettes. I think I kept about 20 for myself. And then I did wind up donating the rest of them back to NAMSA. I didn't keep all of the cookies either. I kept a few to put on my shelves, but I donated a lot of them to my artist friends who can paint much better than I can. Because they are medallions and some people paint them and make them look really pretty. And I will not be doing that with the ones that I kept. So I figured might as well give a few to my friends who can paint them and turn them into a work of art and will enjoy them in that way instead of me just putting them on a shelf. I also donated a few silver and gold sets to my photo show series to use as raffle prizes, and those have gone over well too. So they are all getting circulated back into the hobby, and then I've got a handful of them that are sitting displayed on my shelves. I did also show in the collectability classes on Wednesday and did quite honorably in those as well. I didn't take home quite as many ribbons and champion titles that day. I think I had 2 or 3 national champs and reserves, and then a handful of top 10s outside of that. But halter has kind of become my specialty. I love breed research and breed assignments, and that's definitely where my models tend to shine. So those were my 2 show days, and thank you so much again to Zoe for helping me carry models to and from the tables and generally just keep up with everything. I definitely could not have done it at this big of a volume without her help. So thank you so much, Miss Zoe. And then Tuesday, I volunteered as a ring steward at NAN, which was fascinating. That's where I learned a lot more about the judging system and how all of that worked. And it was also super fun to get to see a lot of my friends showing and having great successes on Tuesday as well. And of course, getting to look at all of the eye candy that showed up. That was the Resin and Customs Day, so there was a lot of it. Wednesday evening, I know we're jumping around a little bit, bear with me. Wednesday evening, I picked up my very cool big purchase of BreyerFest this year, and that is Mr. Cloverleaf. He is an open show prize model from a few years back. I talked about him at length in my haul video, so check out that if you want to hear me prattle on about him a little bit more. But I picked him up from his seller, who was so lovely, on Wednesday after finishing up at Nationals. And then headed back to the hotel to do a model swap. I had to reorganize some totes to get ready for the open show on Friday. I could have done all of this on Thursday, but I did have plans Thursday late afternoon, evening, and I didn't have anything going on Wednesday evening, so I figured I would take a couple of quiet hours on Wednesday to get organized, or reorganized rather, and ready for Friday. Now, going back to all the prep that we talked about at the beginning, a large part of that was trying to figure out how I was going to make sure that the right models got to the right place on the right day. Because realistically, I had 3 different separate shows that 3 different separate groups of horses had to make it to. And there were horses that showed all 3 of those days, and there were horses that only showed 1 of those days. So before I left for Kentucky, long before I left for Kentucky, I made lists, little checklists of which horses needed to be where on which days. And different lists came with me on Nan Monday and Nan Wednesday of which horses needed to wind up in which totes at the end of the day, so that when I was packing up from Nan Monday, the Nan Wednesday horses went in specific totes, and the horses that were done for the week went in different totes. That way, when I got to Nan Wednesday, the horses that needed to be at Nan Wednesday were in specific totes. And at the end of Nan Wednesday, the horses that needed to then go on to the open show went in specific totes, and the horses that were done for the week went in other totes. So that by the time I got to my final day of live showing on Friday, only the horses that were showing at the open show wound up actually coming to the open show. And I'm pretty pleased with how that went. I think I only wound up losing one horse in translation. And by losing, I simply mean that he did not make it to the open show. I didn't actually physically lose him. I think it was one of my stablemate Morgans that I wanted to show, if I'm remembering correctly. He didn't make it to the open show, but that was just one model. And with how heavy the logistics were for transporting and showing 300 models across 3 days, I was pretty darn pleased with that. So Wednesday evening, I made sure that I had everything set and ready to go for the open show Friday morning, which also gave me the freedom to have an absolute blast with zero responsibilities on Thursday. Well, pretty close to zero. I guess it's BreyerFest. There aren't ever truly zero responsibilities, but it was pretty darn close. Thursday was so much fun. I got to quote unquote sleep in a little bit, which I think meant maybe about 7 or 8 a.m., but that was better than the rest of the week, so I can't complain too much. I headed over with my friends Rachel and Zoe to the Clarion in the morning. We went to go visit friend/sister Rebecca, who was showing at Resin Renaissance. And of course, also had to stop and say hello to many, many, many friends that we found were also showing at Resin Renaissance, which was so much fun. One of my main goals for this year that really kind of didn't start until Thursday because Nan was so crazy. But one of my goals for this year was to take more pictures with my friends, because I got home from BreyerFest 2023 and found that I maybe only had like 4 or 5 selfies with my friends. And I was really sad about that, because spending time with your friends is the best part of BreyerFest. You get to see more people in one location than you do the rest of the year. I mean, there were friends that I have from literally all over the country that were at BreyerFest or outside of the country at BreyerFest. And to come home with only that handful of pictures of my friends last year was a bummer. So one of my goals for this year was to take many, many, many more pictures with my friends, and I felt like I accomplished that this year. I got pictures with so many of you guys, and it makes me very happy. So you'll see some of those in here. We had lots of people to visit at Resin Renaissance, and of course, the second we stepped out of that show hall, we ran into more people to talk to and more friends. And I think we made it to 1 or 2 room sales at the Clarion before we somehow wound up at the Sedona Tap House for lunch, which was lovely. What a fun little nice break from the chaos of BreyerFest. It's a super cute restaurant. I definitely want to go back again next year. And we got drinks and had chicken sandwiches and salads and got to talk plastic horses for a couple of hours. And it seemed like as we were sitting there, we just kept adding more and more people to our table. I think it was just 2 or 3 of us to start. And then we walked in and found friends. And then friends just kept walking in and finding us. And we had this giant booth, and God bless our waitress, because we just kept adding people. And I just looked at her. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Is this okay? And she was like, yeah, you're fine. And she was totally chill, and we tipped her very well because she deserved it. So let's see. After that, I believe we just walked around and kept running into people that we wanted to catch up with. I could barely go 15 feet without running into somebody that I wanted to chat with and see how their BreyerFest was. And that's kind of the spirit of it, I guess. But I think I literally made it to 2 or 3 room sales on Thursday. which was kind of the plan for Thursday, was to do room sales. So that didn't really work out, but I did get to talk to many, many, many friends, and that was awesome. In my opinion, better than room sales, because I wasn't going to be buying much anyways. Breakables was also going on Thursday, so we can't actually go in that area. You can't go in there unless you're competing for obvious reasons. Nor would I want to. I always give the China table a very wide berth at live shows because I am far too clumsy to trust myself around those things. But we did get to talk to some friends that were showing in that as well, which was cool. It was nice to observe that from a distance. And then I had to dip out of the Clarion at a reasonable hour on Thursday. And by reasonable hour, I seem to think it was still close to 8 or 9 p.m., but I had to get back to the hotel, I had to feed myself, and I had to load up the truck for the open show in the morning. And I still don't think that I was in bed before midnight that night, so there was just a lot of work behind the scenes back at that hotel room. Friday was a very early wake-up call, as always, for the BreyerFest open show at the Alltech Arena. And at this point, I have learned my lesson. I am never again wearing my hair down for the open show. I did it last year, and I remember thinking as I was leaving, next year I'm wearing my hair up. And this year, in the morning, I was like, I want to look cute. And so I wore my hair down, and never again. I've learned. It is so muggy and disgusting the morning of the open show. Even if you just have one load to bring in from your car and then running around doing the collector's classes in the morning, setting everything up, you're gonna be disgusting. It's just gross. There's no getting around it. So I've learned next year, no hair down is going in a ponytail or a braid. All right, that's not why we're here. Anyways, I shared a table at the open show with my friend Erin, and we had a blast. First thing in the morning, I got to work setting up my collector's class entries. This was my second year entering in the collector's classes at the open show. I entered in the same 2 classes this year that I entered in last year, and that would be the novice collector's class and the stablemates collector's class. I didn't win anything in either class last year, but I had so much fun coming up with the themes behind my entries and building the displays that I wanted to do it again regardless. I went in with no expectations because the classes are extremely competitive. There's lots of very, very, very collectible models that show up and people that have been doing this for much, much longer than I have. But I did take a lot of pride in my entries, and I put a ton of work into them. I started working on them probably in January of 2024 and put hours and hours into the inspiration behind them, the description behind each entry, and obviously the actual entries themselves. And this year I had a really, really good open show. The day started with second place in the stablemates collector's class, which won me a glossy Zorabelle. I was gobsmacked when they announced my name. I didn't really quite believe it at first, especially considering what else was on the table and who else had entered the class. I was just happy to be a part of it, honestly. Like, I was setting up and talking to people, and I was like, I'm just, honestly, it's cliche, but I'm just thankful to be here. Like, I've wanted to do this my whole life, and like, here I am talking to people that have been doing this for decades and just shooting the shit and having a good time. Pardon my French, sorry. And like, I get to look at pretty plastic horses all day and spend time with my friends, and like, I'm just having a great time. And like, I don't really overreact or have strong reactions to things. I'm an attorney and my husband is a cop, and so things don't really surprise me very much, just generally speaking. But when they called my name in that class, my hands were shaking so bad that I didn't even want to hold my boxed prize model because I was worried I was going to drop her. I was so excited. Like, probably one of the most exciting moments that I've had in a very long time, at least with regards to winning something. It was definitely a hobby highlight for me. Definitely a trip highlight, as far as the showing side of BreyerFest went. There was also a very cool moment at Nationals where I had a horse win both the National Grand and the National Reserve in a class. It was the European Warm Blood class for Breyer Traditionals, which is my favorite class of all time. I'm a warm blood girl. I ride hunter jumpers, so that's kind of my jam. And that was probably a number 2 or number 3 highlight, but the Stablemates Collectors class definitely takes the cake for me. And then a little bit later that morning, I also was honored to win 5th place in the Novice Collectors class, which was also super cool. I really liked my theme for that entry and I put a lot of work into it, so it was very cool to win both of those ribbons at the open show. And then quite literally a few minutes after that, in the first section of the day, my Theo, or Captain Oates, won sectional grand champ for regular run drafts. And that was really cool. So I peaked pretty darn early in the morning at the open show. I think all 3 of those rosettes were within maybe the first hour and a half that the open show was going on. And I was just internally shaking the rest of the day. I'm not sure quite how else to describe it. I was just so happy and so excited. The rest of the day was still really awesome, but those were definitely my big 3 highlights. I wound up with a few more Nan cards, which was really cool. Those were my first open show Nan cards ever. I think I won 3 or 4 classes in the mini division, and then I got some respectable placings in the very limited run classes with some of my event models, and I showed Mr. Cloverleaf for the first time, which was really cool. I did wind up missing a few of the pony classes. I brought my poor Sand Dollar and my Bill Berry to show in the special run division, and they simply did not make it up to their class. But it happens. It happens at every show. I always typically wind up missing just 1 class every show. And I cannot complain too much about the outcome of the open show. It was so much fun. I was glad to see so many friends there showing as well, and very happy for their successes. I had quite a few friends I know that won sectional models as well, which was so awesome. And it was honestly such a thrill to have my little guy go up for the overall callbacks. Even though he didn't win one, it was so cool to see him up there with only a handful of other horses after literally hundreds of horses had been up on those tables all day. All right, so Friday during the day was obviously all spent at the open show, and after the open show wrapped up, or at least after the divisions that Aaron and I were showing in wrapped up, we went and did a quick change, and then we headed over to the Griffin Gate for the Stone Art of the Horse dinner. Aaron was being honored as a finalist, as well as, come to find out, so were a few of my other friends, which was so cool. So we went to attend the dinner and the awards presentation, which, if you guys have never done this before, I 1000% recommend it. I had never been before. I'm not really a stone collector, and so I didn't really have a reason to go until I was there supporting a friend who was participating and was a finalist in the actual competition itself. But I will probably continue to go from here on out just because it was so much fun. Even if you're not there to shop for the model horses, just taking a beat during the craziness that BreyerFest can be and having a nice, somewhat dressy sit-down dinner at a fancy hotel in a fancy ballroom with gorgeous model horses is just a really fun experience. And for me, it was also nice because even though I'm not a stone collector, I love everything that stone has been doing this past year. And I wanted to find some way to show that support again, even if I'm a diehard Breyer girly. So going to the dinner and doing it that way, I at least felt like I was contributing a little bit to, encouraging the good things that I've seen coming out of stone the past year. And that was really, really cool. It was an awesome experience, both to support stone and the artists that worked so hard on their pieces. The food was excellent. The ambiance was excellent. We just had a great time. There was never a boring moment the entire evening. It was relaxed. It was nice. And I would definitely go back in the future. That brings us to Saturday, which is notoriously my least favorite day of BreyerFest, and it kind of remained that way this year, even though it was still a good day. I did a workshop early in the morning on Saturday, and what I have learned is that I don't think BreyerFest workshops are going to be for me. I think doing a workshop on top of already spending Friday all day at the open show is just too much time taken away from the park experience, which is a little bit of a bummer because there are so many cool workshops that are offered at BreyerFest and things that I would love to learn in person that are pretty difficult to get elsewhere. Like, for example, I wanted to do I was trying to focus more on tack making workshops or diorama-based workshops, both at Breyer West and BreyerFest this year. It's something that I don't really know much about, and I was just trying to expand my knowledge base to see if it's something that I enjoyed, and also just to learn how people build these gorgeous performance setups and tack that, you see at live shows. And so I tried to do workshops this year, and the first one, it didn't go terribly, but I realized after spending those 2 hours inside away from the horse park that I just had ants in my pants. I could not sit still. I just kept thinking about all the stuff going on at the park that I was missing, and I just couldn't quite get in the right mindset to make it worthwhile. Now, I had a fantastic experience doing workshops at Breyer West in Colorado in March. And I think that mentally that's because there's not a whole lot else that I feel that I was missing out on when we did the workshops at Breyer West. When the workshops are going on, that's kind of all there is going on, because there's, only a small area dedicated to Breyer West versus at the horse park, there's so much to do that's model horse centric that I just felt like sitting in the air conditioned room, as nice as that was, for 4 hours, I just couldn't handle it. I felt like I was losing all this time at the horse park and missing out on all of the things. And that gut feeling wound up being right this year. I didn't feel like I got enough horse park time. And if I want to continue doing the open show, which I absolutely do, I love the open show, I feel like just adding the workshops on top of that, it's just going to wind up being too much for me. I don't feel like I get enough time at the park to just soak in BreyerFest and spend time with the real horses, watch covered arena demonstrations, walk through the tents. I never made it to the hobby information tents. There were certain things I just simply did not make it to. I went through the Breyer store one time, I think, and I would have loved to have spent more time digging through stuff in there and looking at things. And I went through once for maybe about 15 minutes to grab my stuff, and that was it, because that's all I had time for. So I think eliminating the workshop element next year is going to be my way to go. And word on the street is that next year, the open show is going to be a 2-day affair. I don't know exactly what that is going to look like. I don't know if they know what that is going to look like yet, but I know that that was mentioned at the open show, so I don't know. BreyerFest, the days might look entirely different next year compared to the way they've looked in years past. So Saturday after my workshop, I did run the celebration horse line as well as the store line. My lovely friend Laura, who is an angel, had picked up my special runs for me on Friday and brought them to the open show. Again, angel. We love Laura. So I didn't actually and have yet to run the special run line ever at BreyerFest, which is crazy. But I picked up all of those extra horses on Saturday, had enough time to sit down and watch maybe a demonstration before Rebecca and I sat down to watch the raffle pull. I did buy tickets both days for the raffle, but no luck this year, which is completely fine. I had plenty of luck in other avenues this year. Although I will say both of the raffle models this year were gorgeous. So congratulations to all who won them. And from the raffle, we sprinted over to the live auction. I had quite a few friends that were actually bidding in the live auction, so definitely wanted to watch them and cheer them on. The auction is always a treat to watch regardless. It's so fun to watch. The energy levels are always so high and fun. And Saturday, really the second half of the day was quite insane now that I think about it. So we went from shopping to the raffle to the auction, and then after the auction concluded, I boogied myself over to the Clarion because I was doing a pickup for my Best Customs Contest stablemate that I purchased, and I needed to be at the Clarion when they announced the winners of the Best Custom Contest, which was supposed to coincide with when the social media meet was going on, that is why I initially thought that I wasn't going to be able to make the social media meet, because I was under the impression that they were going to be announcing the BCC winners while the social media meet was going on. But I was able to actually do both. I wound up running into my friend Crystal at the Artisans Gallery beforehand, and we went over to the social media meet together, and I got to see so many of you guys there, which was awesome. I got to sign so many horses and had so many people sign mine. Also, the friendship bracelets. So many bracelets, so many beads. It was a blast, and I'm so glad that I did get to do both. I really only caught the beginning of the social media meet before I got kind of nervous and was like, ooh, I should probably head back to where the BCC finalists are going to be announced just to hang out there. I didn't want to miss out on my opportunity to get that guy in person. But I am thrilled that I at least got to make an appearance at the social media meet. It was very uplifting. I got to talk to so many of you guys that I had never met before, and that was so much fun. I did then wind up going back to the Artisans Gallery and hanging out until they announced the BCC winners. I got to hang out with my friend Hallie, who was selling at the Artisans Gallery, which was super cool. And then I did get to pick up my little stablemate and went home for the evening. Sunday then was thankfully the most relaxing day of the week. I got to sleep in a little bit and then head to the park with my friends. And we pretty much walked around, petted horses, ate lunch, had some drinks, and watched the raffle get pulled. And that was the whole day on Sunday. In the evening, we went out to a big friend dinner, which has become quite the tradition. You have to go to Cracker Barrel at least once while you're in Kentucky. So that has been our tradition now the past 2 years, as we do a nice big friend dinner at Cracker Barrel on Sunday night. So we did that, and of course had some very out-of-pocket things to order and try. I'm pretty sure we ordered fried pickles for the table this year, which for our UK friends was quite the treat. And then I slept probably the hardest I slept all week on Sunday night. In the morning, we packed up the truck, which is always quite the task, especially at the end of the week, but I think we did a pretty darn good job at staying organized throughout the week. I had no choice with how many horses I had in that tiny space, but I think we did a pretty darn good job, and we had enough room for everything plus all of the new additions on the way home. And on Monday, I drove part of the way, dropped off my friend Zoe, and then drove the rest of the way all the way back to Michigan. And that is my BreyerFest saga, BreyerFest 2024. It was an amazing trip. All of the things, so many things, all of the people, so many people. It was so great. I feel like I'm still processing the whole thing, and I know there's definitely parts that I left out. It was not intentional. There was just so much to remember. It was a super memorable year for a lot of different reasons, and I'm really, really looking forward to next year. Next year's gonna look a lot different. It's unlikely that there's going to be a Nan next year from my understanding of things, which is fine by me. I don't think that's something that I could do every year. But I am hoping to do the open show again next year and do a lot of things similarly. Like I said, I don't think I plan on doing workshops at BreyerFest next year. I just don't feel like I can fit that into 3 days at the park when I spend all of Friday already at the open show. So that's probably the one thing I would change going into next year. But besides that, I'm excited for another awesome year next year of shopping and friends and pretty plastic horses. So if you are still here after all 46 minutes of this long rant, thank you. You're crazy, but I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.